Hey, what's up? Alright, so today I'm going to talk about PTSD, and this is going to be today's video in our mental health series. There are only a couple left as of what I'm thinking right now. So yeah, let's dive into it. So PTSD, I've been putting off this video because I really think this is the hardest one for me, just because it makes me have to obviously recall the things that have happened that have led me to having PTSD, and that's hard. So I also find that the more that I do recall it, sometimes it helps, but sometimes it doesn't. It's just really weird how that works. But I also want to point out, first and foremost, that I am new to PTSD. I was just diagnosed with it about a year ago, and I don't take any medication. There's really no medication for it except for if you have like the nightmares, you can be prescribed certain medications that can help you with your sleeping and with your nightmares. So fortunately I never needed that. I don't really have the nightmares anymore. At first, shortly following my traumatic events, I'm referring to two traumatic events in particular, but shortly following them I did experience the nightmares for probably about the first few months, I would say, and then shortly thereafter they started to dissipate. And I'm not saying they never happen. It does still happen occasionally every now and then, but for the most part I don't really have to worry about it. So PTSD is so different for everyone, and I can feel the tension even just thinking about it and talking about this. But I really wanted to do this because I feel like it's important. It's important to share your story, and it's important to do what you can to reach out and help other people. And sharing your experience, honestly, can help people so much. It really, really does. And so PTSD can happen to anyone. Basically, all it is post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, so a traumatic event that happens to you, and you feel lasting, chronic effects of it. You can have nightmares, flashbacks, where you're thinking about what happened. You're reliving it in your mind over and over, and the symptoms can really vary. And so for some people this can even be lifelong. For some people it can last months, years. It can be a very on and off problem. There's so many different ways it can go. Some people don't experience it for very long. Some people don't experience it at all. So I've actually had many traumatic events in my life in which I did not experience PTSD. So every event is different, and every event is going to trigger a different response. But this can happen to anyone. So anything you've been through that has caused you, severe trauma, it can definitely happen. So this trauma can be anything from like a severe illness, an injury, a car accident, to losing a loved one, witnessing a crime. There are so many different things. Being in the military is a huge one. There are so many of our military personnel, veterans that are suffering with PTSD. It's a really huge thing. It's terrible. But anyways, so for me personally, there were two particular events that led me to experiencing PTSD. So I don't think I actually knew that I had PTSD. It really didn't hit me until after the second event. And then, it was kind of like it dawned on me like, hey, I think I actually have PTSD. And I never really thought about it. And I think it's that way for a lot of people. I don't think everybody is going to notice it straight away. I don't think everybody's even going to acknowledge it, because I think it's so normal for us to be traumatized from the trauma and to, and to have these flashbacks and these nightmares. And I think, it might not even dawn on people that, hey, I do have PTSD. So, it's different for everyone. And it can cause anxiety, it can cause panic attacks, depression, and a lot of these things can all be linked together as well. So, and for me, definitely has been linked together at times in the past, and even now in the present day. So the first traumatic event, I'm going to be brief about my explanation of both, just because it's hard for me to talk about. entire video on this, and I didn't explain every single detail, but I got pretty in depth with it. And so I did a video on, you know, being arrested for the crime that I did not commit. But it was a very violent crime, and yeah, I went to jail. I was like 4.5 months pregnant at the time, so it was very hard on me. I was stuck in there for 3 days because they had slapped a restraining order on me, and this was all for a crime I absolutely did not commit, and there was not sufficient evidence that I did commit the crime. And so, you know, I was experiencing like police brutality, and I was experiencing neglect as well. When I was in jail, I was stuck in a holding cell that had not been cleaned the whole time I was there. Other girls were coming in and out. One of them had a staph infection. It was really horrible. And, you know, aside from that, like, they didn't give me a shower. They denied me medical care when I was cramping really, really bad. Like, I didn't know if I was going to lose my baby or what. Like, it was just so horrible. And yeah, so then the judge, I saw a judge the next day, and he posted my bond at like $50,000, and he told me, he's like, I really actually wanted to place your bond at $100,000 because of what you did. And I was like, I mean, I couldn't say anything, because what can you say when you've been falsely accused of something you didn't do? So yeah, I was charged with like this 2nd-degree felony, and it was not a pretty picture. Fortunately, I was able to hire a really good attorney, and she told me pretty much from the get-go after getting out of jail, which fortunately I was even able to get out of jail. A lot of people would not be able to post a bond in that situation, or post bail, whatever you want to call it. So fortunately, my family and I had the 10% that it required to get me out of there, and then I had to report to a bail bondsman. But anyways, yeah, it was just really crazy. And so the attorney told me from the get-go, she was like, the truth is there's not sufficient evidence for this crime, and you're not going to be charged with you know, this severely violent crime. She said, you know, we're probably going to get a drop, but worst case scenario, you might be facing a misdemeanor charge or something like that, but you will not go to jail for this. And I was like, thank God. So after that point, it started to get better, but there were other circumstances playing into this issue as well. And I was alone and pregnant at the time, and it was just, I was navigating everything on my own, and it was a very, very hard, tough situation for me. So that was my first incident. I was arrested for this violent crime that I didn't commit. I was literally treated like a murderer. And I actually found out that when I was in jail, or when I got out, I looked up some other cases, people that had been arrested and taken to the county jail and everything. And this was also small town, like corruption, small town, rural area, county corruption. These jails were not every jail is regulated by the government. So this jail was not regulated by the government. And it was a really bad situation. I just can't even begin to tell you. They didn't even give me a mat to sleep on, and I was pregnant. They gave me like one little blanket, and it was like literally 55 to 60 degrees in that jail cell. And I didn't see the sunlight for 3 days. And it was just, you know, it was really traumatic. And so I think I was going to say something else, but you'll have to bear with me because sometimes like pieces black out. So yeah, so all the while, you know, it's like I'm in jail, I get out, and you know, things start to slowly get better from there. But I was so traumatized from that situation, and after that point, I did not realize that I had PTSD. I was just so focused on trying to survive and try to recover from that. And so then there was another incident, and this was all related to the same person that had accused me of the crime I didn't commit. So in 2019, so this was like October of 2019, there was another really traumatic event in which my youngest son, who is 2 now, he was kind of like ripped from me, if that makes sense. So his dad at the time actually like took him and held him from me, because he was upset with me because he had tried to throw me in a vehicle. And so what I did was I ended up turning around and pepper spraying him, and I was really, really scared. And he tried to force me into his truck, and I didn't want to go because we were arguing, and it was like this huge mess, right? So anyway, so we did that. And so after I pepper sprayed him, I ran in my car. I was totally freaking out, right? So I ran in my car, and he still had, we had the baby who was 10 months old at the time. We had him in the back seat of the truck. And so at which point he had him, and I drove to my parents' house, and I was like, I don't know what the heck to do. I was so afraid. I did not call the police. My first instinct was to call the police, but I did not. And that is simply because I was afraid, because of what had happened to me before, because I had been arrested for a crime I did not commit. So of course I didn't want to call the police, you know? So I didn't. And that was the biggest mistake that I made. So I went to my parents' house, and, you know, from there, he basically just refused, my ex, that is, he refused to let me see the child. And at the time he was still breastfeeding, like he was weaning, but he was in fact still breastfeeding. And so it was just a really, really horrible incident. And so what actually ended up happening here, and this is like the most horrific thing ever that has ever happened to me in my life, but he actually came against me, went to court, filed a temporary restraining order before I could, I had hired an attorney as well, but he beat me to the punch by like a day or two. And he actually came at me with a temporary restraining order, because here in Texas, it actually doesn't take, you really don't have to have any kind of sufficient evidence to get a restraining order. You can pretty much be granted a temporary restraining order for pretty much anything. All you have to have is an accusation. So, yeah, he put a restraining order on me against my own child. So we went to court about, I guess it was about a week later, a week and a half later, and because he piled all these accusations upon me, and because, you know, I had been arrested for the crime I didn't commit the year before, which that was dismissed after several months. It was completely dismissed due to insufficient evidence. Because of all of these things, they saw me as a threat, okay, and also for my history of having anxiety and depression. So basically the court came to see me as a threat to my own child, even though I was just defending myself. And this had played into the situation that had happened back in 2018, the year prior, the other traumatic event, the first traumatic event, because same situation, self-defense, you know, and it's like, there you go, boom, same situation happening all over again, only far worse because my child had been removed from me. And so I actually had to report him missing. I had to contact, like, I can't remember what it's called, like Child Find International. I had to contact, what's the other one that's really popular where you report your child missing, Find the Children, or, yeah, I mean, it's just like absolutely horrible. I had no idea where he was. I had to call for like welfare checks, trying to figure out what was going on. So that's about as much detail as I'm going to go into when it comes to that. But I did end up having to go through like supervised visitations for like 5 months solid. I only got to see my child at McDonald's like 3 to 4 times a week for about an hour or two. The first couple months, the first few months, he would get really, really tired after the first hour, and he'd be so exhausted that we would just have to leave, so I wouldn't get much time. And yeah, I mean, it's just horrible. I mean, like, at first, like, he would try to show up to these visits, he'd wait outside in his truck. His aunt even, she would even try to tell me during the visit, she told me, like, you can't give your son that bottle. Like, I brought a bottle for him, and she was like, you can't do that. Our attorney said, no, you're not allowed to give him a bottle. They told me I was not allowed to change his diaper. And all the while I'm thinking, like, I am his freaking mother. And so, our bond really suffered from that. And even to this day, there are some lingering effects. Although, mostly everything has been reconciled from that with my youngest son and I. But it affected my older son really badly as well. It affected him very, very negatively. And it was really horrible. And so, eventually, I had to hire like a custody evaluator. I had to hire, the attorney. I mean, it was just like so much. And I fought and I fought and I fought. And finally, when the coronavirus pandemic came about, things started to kind of smooth out a little bit. And, my ex started meeting me at the park so I could see my son at the park. And then eventually, shortly thereafter, the custody evaluator finally recommended that that our child go ahead and start staying with me like every other weekend, and then an extra day like every other week. So basically, they call it here in Texas, they call it like a standard possession order or something like that, or modified. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know what they call it. But yeah. So, and then shortly thereafter that, it was recommended that we kind of like wean our way into a 50-50 type of situation. So basically, it was eventually determined, after I'd undergone countless psychological evaluations and gone through all this crap, it was eventually determined that, yeah, there's nothing wrong with me. They couldn't find anything that would indicate that there should be a concern. But the issue was, at this point, my child had such unfamiliarity with my house, with me, and the custody evaluator saw that. So that's why we had to kind of like slowly integrate, even though he was ripped from me in the first place, slowly integrate him coming back with me. And so, so finally we get to a point where, I tried to reconcile with my ex, and, then we were living together for a short time, and I was able to, care for him full time, and then my other son as well that I care for full time. So it was kind of that way for a while, and then, finally he was like, we can't get along, and I was stuck in this miserable situation, and he was like, we can't get along, so what we need to do is just, you get him half the time, I get him half. And so finally I was like, hallelujah, it's a miracle, here we go. And so that is what happened, and that's about the short of it. So there's a lot more I could say about that, and I will eventually do some videos on those other traumatic experiences, and even be able to offer some insight into situations that some of you may be going through when it comes to child custody and all of those things that I've been through, because I feel like my experiences can really assist other people and bring comfort to other people, because I know that I am not the only one that's been through this, and you're not alone. So from this point, I want to go ahead and kind of talk about how I deal with PTSD. So ultimately, my main issue with PTSD is flashbacks. I have a lot of flashbacks, and on average, I would say it happens on average a couple of times a day. Sometimes I will go through a period of a few days, or maybe even close to a week, where I may not really notice much of anything, but more often than not, I will experience flashbacks at least once a day, if not twice or more. Some days I will experience these flashbacks multiple times a day. Sometimes it'll just go on and on and on. So I don't really experience a whole lot of the other stuff. There is anxiety that comes with it. There is depression that comes with it. Just remembering what I have been through. And, it's definitely hard when it comes to my faith in humanity, my faith in the justice system, which is none. And I think waking up to the corruption of the justice system, and, which that's been brought to the light a lot more so here in the last year with police brutality and the corruption of police in general. So it's really scary when you think about it, because it made me realize that realize that anything can happen to anyone. Nobody is exempt. Nobody is immune. If someone hates you enough, if someone wants to hurt you enough, they will. And they can. It's just a matter of how you deal with it and how you cope. And I think in the end, you just have to understand that, if somebody wants to hurt you like that and take those things from you and steal your dignity and all of these things, that in the end, that comes back to them, and it's just the karmic law. So the best thing that you can do is just try to carry on. And this can be very difficult. And like I said before, PTSD is so different for each person. So what I like to do is, first and foremost, I'm always going to mention, like with anything else, that you really need to take care of your physical health and your mental health by regular exercise, even if you're just walking. Anything that, you can do that brings you enjoyment in your exercise is the best thing. Exercise, nutrition, eating healthy, eating clean, avoiding toxic chemicals, cleaners, detoxing your body periodically, using non-toxic personal care products, etc., filtering your water, staying hydrated, taking supplementation, multivitamins, probiotics, and when it comes to the stressors in life, I recommend doing things like adaptogenic herbs, mushrooms, shiitake, whatever it's called, different adaptogens like ashwagandha, and anything that you need to relax. Like I've talked about some of these herbs before, like chamomile, lavender, kava, essential oils, skullcap. There are quite a few different ones to choose from, so you can do your own research on that. And you always want to ask your doctor, especially if you're taking any kind of medications. I always tell you guys, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not any kind of that, okay? I don't have many licenses. The only license I have is a massage therapy license, so bear that in mind. But coming from personal experience, these things really help. Daily meditation, even if it's just a couple of minutes, taking a minute, getting in nature is a huge thing, grounding, all of these things that you can just, easily incorporate into your day without much of an issue. So all these things are really going to help on a physical and mental level. But I would say the main thing that helps me, honestly, is to keep myself distracted. And it's a coping mechanism. I'm not saying it's the greatest thing for everyone, but staying busy has helped me so much. Staying busy, trying new things, always having something going on. Because I have a type A personality, and I'm just the type of person that if I don't have enough to do, or if I find myself bored or not having something to do, I'm going to not freak out, but I'm going to not be happy. I'm going to be kind of upset about it. And it's going to make me think more. And the last thing I want to do is sit around and think about the things that have happened in my life. So I want to focus on moving forward. And yeah, it is important to still think. And it's important to still allow yourself that space to think, hey, what can I do to improve my life? And, maybe I can dig a little bit deeper into what has happened to me. And there are going to be some days where you feel like you just can't handle it. And then there are going to be some days when you feel like, you know what? I'm feeling strong today. I'm feeling like I can handle this. I'm feeling like I want to dive into thinking about what happened and try and see if there's anything I can do to go back through, and walk myself through what happened and try to, tweak, make some little improvements, and find out if there's anything I can do to help. So sometimes just like giving yourself space to allow yourself to go back through that situation can really help. And as hard as it is to relive it, it's like you're going to relive it in your flashbacks anyway. So sometimes it can help to do a meditation on that. And another thing I will mention is there's this thing called rapid eye movement therapy, and it's properly done through a therapist, but it's something that has been proven and shown in recent times to really be highly beneficial for people, particularly with PTSD. So basically it's where you do you watch watch these lines on a screen, like, and it moves your eyes very rapidly, and what you're supposed to do is recall your traumatic event while you're doing these rapid eye movements. And so what's really cool is they actually have these rapid eye movement therapy videos on YouTube and stuff, so you can look that up and see if that's maybe something, you know, that might be good for you. And I have tried it a couple of times, you know, but it just, both times I tried it, it was at night before bed, and I don't recommend doing that because that can, you know, kind of cause you issues when you're trying to sleep, you know, unless you're the type of person that, you know, wants to relive that before you go to sleep. But anyways, so that's always something to look into as well. And I will point out, I haven't seen a therapist about this. You know, I was diagnosed initially during a psychological evaluation because I had to do like 3 of them whenever I was going through child custody issues. So I did suffer through that, and it really sucked. But I, you know, I knew that I had PTSD anyway, so it was kind of like, okay, well, you know, it's just a confirmation. So, you know, and at the time, the therapist just told me, she's like, yeah, you know, she's like, it'll go away with proper counseling, but I don't really, you know, and this is just me. I've been to counseling before, and I feel like, yes, it can really help, but I feel like sometimes it can create a little bit more stress too, for various reasons. At this point in my life, like, I do have insurance, and I have an HMO, because, you know, most of us know here in the U.S. our healthcare system is very broken, and it's really hard to get healthcare. And so it's hard enough for me to even just go to a regular doctor or go to urgent care and get the medical help that I need. So mental health is not really covered under my insurance. I have to meet a deductible first, which is very high. So my insurance just doesn't really cover mental health very well at all. So I would have to probably go to at least 12 to 15 sessions before my insurance would start to kick in. And that's just not something that I have the money for. It's not something I have the time for. You know, I'm always really busy. I have so much going on in my life. And the last thing I need is to stress out over, you know, spending $200 a week on a therapist, you know, and a lot of this stuff I can do myself. Now, it all depends on who you are. I'm not downing therapists by any means, because I think they can really help you and improve your life. But what I am saying, and what I do want to point out, is that there is a lot you can do on your own. If you're in a situation where you can't see a therapist, whether you just don't have the time, whether you just don't want to, or whatever the situation may be, maybe you don't have the money, then there's a lot you can still do on your own. Like the meditations, like the rapid eye movement therapy, and just doing your own research, and, you know, herbs, essential oils, red light therapy, so many different things here. You know, distraction, taking care of your body, staying busy. But you don't want to, a big thing I want to point out is you don't want to try to avoid it. You don't want to try to avoid it altogether, because in the long run it's just going to cause more problems, and it's not going to help you heal. So the main goal here is to heal from the PTSD and to get better, and it may never completely go away, but working on it and doing the best that you can is really all that you can do, because there's no guarantee that it's ever just going to magically go away. Yes, it can happen, but I also find spiritually, you know, going to church helps, and currently I don't go to church yet because of the pandemic, but I think that, you know, having spirituality play into this helps so much. And, you know, just praying every day, and, you know, whatever your religion is, whatever you believe, just holding to those spiritual beliefs, you know, praying, meditating, all of these things. So, and like I said before, I don't consider myself an experienced person with PTSD. I may have had this for a long time. I also had it for a long time before I really acknowledged it. But I also have not taken any of the medications for the sleeping, nightmares, etc. I have not done therapy for this professionally. So I'm just telling you what I know and how I cope with it. I do still struggle with it. And I honestly don't see that going away anytime soon. I think it's something that's probably going to linger with me for a while. I think that the more time passes, remember going to take a shower the third day I was there and being locked in the shower for an hour and a half because they wouldn't let me out. I can remember being denied medical care, being pregnant, being denied a mat to sleep on, the hard concrete, being pregnant, being denied a shower, being denied a change of clothes, being denied all these things. And I can remember having to report my son missing in 2019. I can remember having to sit in the courtroom and nobody believed me, except my own family and friends that were there. And I can remember being made out to look like a lunatic when all I'd done was defend myself. I can remember watching the bond diminish between my baby and I when he was in such a young age. I can specifically remember everything about the McDonald's that I had to go to see my son for 5 solid months. Every single detail. I can remember the sounds. I can remember everything. And so, with that being said, recovery is possible. I'm not there yet, and I may never fully get there, but these are my tips. This is my story. There's a lot more to come in the future, but this is how I'm going to leave this video. I feel like at this point I've said about all I can say. I don't want it to be any longer because it's already gone over 30 minutes, and I wanted to share this. And I'm not naming any names. I'm not calling anybody out. So the person that has been the source of this trauma may or may not see this video. Their family and friends may or may not see this video, but I'm doing this because I have the courage to do it, and I'm not trying to hurt anyone, but I need to share my story. My story needs to be out there, and my story needs to be heard, because it's not just me. There are other people that have been through this too, and that continue to go through these things. And so this is my video on PTSD. And if you have any more questions, you can always reach out to me on any of my social media outlets. You can Google my name,